Okay, so there's a huge storm brewing in the music world. We're seeing major labels suing AI music companies like Suno, and it's getting intense. But what's the actual legal fight all about? Today, we're going to break down the really complex copyright questions that are right at the heart of this whole technological revolution. So let's just get right to it. This is the single question that this whole thing hinges on. Is an AI learning from a song the same as making an illegal copy of it? The answer, well, it's not simple at all, and it's making us rethink what copying and creating even mean anymore. All right, so the first piece of this whole puzzle is to understand the argument from the AI companies themselves. See, they claim they aren't copying anything, they're training their models. So what on earth is the difference? Their core defense is pretty straightforward. They say the AI isn't some fancy digital photocopier. It's actually more like a student. It just takes in massive amounts of data, in this case music, to learn all the underlying patterns and structures that make a song, well, sound like a song. Let's use an analogy to make this super clear. Think about how an AI learns what a blonde woman is. First, you feed it millions of photos. Now, this is the important part. It doesn't store any of those specific photos. Instead, it just forms this abstract idea of blonde woman. So when you ask it to make a picture, the final image is something totally new, not a collage of things it already saw. And that's the exact same logic they're applying to music. The AI companies argue that a song generated by AI isn't a ripoff of any single song it was trained on. Nope, it's a new creation, born from all those learned patterns. That distinction is basically their entire legal defense in a nutshell. Okay, so if the AI is learning, not copying, what does the law have to say? And this is where things get really sticky. We've got this brand new technology, but the rules we're using to judge it are, well, they're decades old. I mean, can a law written in the age of vinyl records possibly apply to something like generative AI? The key law everyone's talking about is the U.S. Copyright Act of 1978. Just think about that date for a second, 1978. This law was designed to stop stuff like making bootleg cassette tapes or photocopying entire books. The key word in the whole thing is reproduction. And right there, you see the massive disconnect, right? The law is laser-focused on preventing direct copies, reproductions. But the AI process, at least according to the tech companies, has nothing to do with reproduction. It's all about learning patterns to make something new. It's almost like the two sides are speaking completely different languages. This quote really just nails the skepticism here. You cannot use old laws and then extrapolate them onto new technology. The point is, trying to stretch a 1978 law to cover today's AI is the classic square peg in a round hole problem. The context is just worlds apart. Here is a kind of wild analogy to make this tangible. Imagine we invent 3D holographic calls, and you project your hologram from Europe into the US. Could you be arrested for entering the country without a visa? I mean, the law was written for physical bodies crossing a border, not for a projection of light. That's the kind of absurdity some people see in applying old copyright law to AI training. So, if the law is a tricky fit, maybe we can get some perspective from history. Because let's be real, this isn't the first time a new technology has come along and completely disrupted an industry, raising all sorts of questions about what's fair and what's legal. Let's start with a really simple, modern example. A pianist learning a song on YouTube. Seriously, think about it. Millions of us do this every day. You watch a tutorial, you learn the chords, you practice. You're not selling a copy, you're just internalizing the patterns to get better at your craft. So, is an AI learning from public data really that different from a human doing the exact same thing? Okay, now let's talk about market disruption. Remember the good old days of Blockbuster and the battle between DVDs and this new thing called Netflix? Or, an even bigger one, the massive shift from film to digital photography, which pretty much destroyed Kodak's entire business model. Here's the crucial point with all this. Netflix and digital cameras were direct competitors to old businesses. But we didn't ban streaming. We didn't ban digital photography. History shows that just because a new technology competes with an old one, even if it completely upends an industry, that doesn't make it illegal. And that raises a really big question for this whole AI debate. So, with all that context, where does that leave us right now? Things are moving incredibly fast, and some recent developments have added a whole new layer to this. Let's get clear on what's actually happening as we speak. So get this, a recent report from the US Copyright Office added a really fascinating wrinkle. It suggested that, yeah, infringement might happen, but it all hinges on whether the AI's output competes with the original work. That one word, competes, is huge. It brings us right back to Netflix and Kodak, doesn't it? What does it even mean for a new technology to compete? This timeline really helps put it all in perspective. You've got the Copyright Act, written way back in 1978. Then, much later, around 2022, you've got these AI companies doing their training. And today, the courts aren't writing new laws. They're just trying to interpret that old 1978 law in this brand new context. And this is so important to understand. These companies aren't being sued under some new law written specifically for AI. They're being challenged under a law from the disco era. The entire debate is about whether that old law can or even should be stretched to cover this new reality. Ultimately, what this all comes down to is a massive balancing act. On one side, you have the absolute need to protect creators and their right to control their own work. But on the other side, you've got this incredible potential of new technology which needs to learn from the world's data to get better. Both are incredibly important. And that leaves us with the final massive question. Because the outcome of these lawsuits won't just affect AI music. It's going to set a precedent for art, for writing, for every kind of creativity. So how do we protect what we have while still making room for what's next? That's the puzzle we all have to solve.